Welcome back to Midcap Radar. Well, an important development as far as pharma companies are concerned. The US Senate has approved the Biosecure Act as a bipartisan measure to be included in the National Defense Authorization Act. Ekta joins in to explain.
Well, yes, definitely it is an important development which has taken place when it comes to the US Biosecure Act, where the Senate has passed it and now it's expected to go to the House. But just to put it into perspective, that it could possibly be a watered down version of what was expected. Because remember, in the earlier version, according to analysts, there were specific Chinese companies, biotech companies that were named. And now, according to people who are close to the matter, have indicated that the specific Chinese companies are probably left out of that purview of the Biosecure Act. Now, however, it's definitely a positive for Indian companies, irrespective for Indian CDMO companies, and they've already been seeing the benefits of a China Plus One come through. So, for example, the companies that we've spoken to in the past couple of weeks and even in the past couple of months have indicated that they have seen inquiries from Chinese CDMO companies rise by anywhere between 30 to 40%. And a lot of the business, however, takes a couple of months, even up to 36 months in terms of conversion. But even companies which were not looking at India or not interested in giving business to India are now looking at business in India and are looking at possibly smaller amounts to start with, say $100,000 or $200,000. Large pharma companies are talking to Indian companies in terms of business inquiries as well. So what we are seeing is that there is a push and there is definitely a flow of business which is coming into Indian companies. A couple of companies believe that maybe in the next couple of years, business could probably rise 3 times to 4 times for Indian CDMO companies simply because of the kind of flow of business. But it remains to be seen whether or not we can service that business given the scale that Indian CDMOs lack. We still have to scale up according to a lot of the industry watchers, and that would be something that we could probably see in the next couple of quarters.
All right, Ekta, thank you so much for explaining that change that has come by, the approval of Biosecure Act in the US. Nimish Mehta, founder partner research, Delta Advisors, is joining us now to understand which stocks are in focus on the back of this news and whether we'll see immediate benefit come by or not. Nimish, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in. First up, your take, which are the stocks which would be most benefiting the most from this? And do you think that benefit would immediately come by, because it takes some time to build onto the benefits that are there in the Biosecure Act?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me on the show. We do track the industry, but won't be able to comment specifically on the stocks. However, I would agree to the commentary given by Ekta that it's a bottom-down version, and we continue to believe that it is going to be neutral for companies in India. Mainly because the watered-down version actually is not naming any companies. WuXi Biotech, for example, was the biggest company in China who used to garner a lot of market share of CDMO industry. That name is no more given in the list, and the new version of the act actually tells about a list that will be prepared by Defense Department of the US. And companies within that list will be affected. What I understand is that WuXi is still not a part of that list as well. So to that extent, I personally would feel that it is going to be a big step for any pharma company. And also, we are seeing a lot of news around manufacturing to be shifted to US. So something which is as critical as national security, even if it is moving outside of China, I think measures would be to be under the US manufacturing control.
Right. Nimish, thank you so much for giving us that perspective. Nimish, one more question. We understand that, this particular bill still needs to be approved by the president before it becomes a reality. So typically, what is the timeline, if you, have a sense of how exactly that particular system works? And secondly, are you saying that this need not necessarily mean a China plus one opportunity for India, but rather a reshoring back to the US market?
Yeah, so the first question, I clearly don't know how the timeline works in the US, the US parliamentary system.
Right.
But yeah, I clearly see that, because we have been hearing about what the Trump administration's emphasis on getting manufacturing back to US, not just for the pharma, but for any industry. And from that perspective, just few days back, we were also worried about whether they will be putting a tariff on generic industry, which obviously was not done. But from that perspective, I don't think China plus one today from the US market, or from the US perspective, may mean a shift to India always, and definitely not for products which are as important as the national security concern product.
So, Nimish, Ekta was also mentioning that some of these companies have also already started seeing some inquiries on the back of an expectation that there could be an approval that would come by. Now that it has come by, do you think we'll take some time to convert that into production and convert that into service, because we don't have that much capacity?
Again, I would repeat the same thing. I don't know about the inquiries, but logically, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, we have heard about AstraZeneca, for example, Eli Lilly putting up a facility in India, which means that they might shift, even if they shift manufacturing, they would try to keep it under their control. But I don't know about the timeline, at what stage, at what companies are talking to the companies. That's very hard to know. Talk obviously does not mean that business is coming. So logically, it doesn't fit our understanding.
Okay, Nimish, one more question. See, typically a whole host of companies have actually mentioned that they have received RFPs, and it's taking a bit of time for them to materialize into final orders. Along with that, especially in the last few quarters, especially a company like Syngene have actually spoken about a very tough US biotech funding environment. With these coming into the picture, what is your opinion as far as the outlook for CDMO names in India are concerned?
The CDMO names so far, when we talk about CDMO, we are talking about several parts of the industry. The first and probably the most important part is where the innovator is getting their supplies from the CDMO supplier. And then there are obviously generic API suppliers and even the generic formulation suppliers and developers both. So for the last two part, I don't think there is going to be any problem, or it will continue the way it has been. And India has been kind of, at least on the formulation part, been dominating the industry. On API, yes, the shift is taking place from China to India, but that is for the worldwide market, not just for the US market. And that's also because US does not have the capacity, and it will be difficult for them to create capacity immediately. But about the first part, which means innovator getting their supplies from CDMO companies. As I mentioned, because these are anyway very important products, and innovator companies definitely can manufacture on their own. Obviously there will be some issues in creating capacities, but they would try to get it in the US on the US soil.
All right, Nimish, thank you so much for joining us and explaining to us what this means. So yes, the market is getting excited, but you do not see immediate impact, positive impact come by for these pharma companies, because there's still some time in terms of building capacities and the China plus one theme to play out as well. With that, we'll slip into a short break. When we come back, we'll get you more on the markets and stock-specific action on the other side. Stay tuned for that.